Okay, well, welcome everybody to, I don't even know what number this is, 5K Your Way's Facebook Live. Wow, we are very honoured this afternoon to have three incredible guests joining Georgie and I. We've got Claire O'Rourke, who is the Associate Director for Greater Manchester Cancer, and her husband, John, who's Chief Inspector at Greater Manchester Police, and has, I think, been diagnosed with 2 cancers in the space of a year. They're both amazing advocates for 5K Your Way. I've never met either of them, so I'm really excited to chatting to both of them. And we're also joined by Steve Bland, I've got to say it, also known as Steve Bland, who's co-host of the Me Big C podcast, which if you haven't listened to it, you really should. It's one of the best resources, really, I think, about cancer. So the You Me Big C podcast, the BBC podcast, it was founded by Steve's wife, Rachael, who sadly died 2 years ago from breast cancer. So this week, we are going to be having a very loose conversation about the impact of a cancer diagnosis on the whole family, not just on the person who's been diagnosed. So I sometimes, and I always try to acknowledge as a doctor, not perhaps as well as I should do, but cancer is obviously a team effort. And sometimes I wonder whether it's actually harder for the person who's looking after the person who's been diagnosed than it is for the person who's going through treatment. I guess all the attention, and we're very bad as doctors and nurses for thinking of, you know, the rest of the family. And so all the conversations are based around the person who's been diagnosed, but obviously it has a much broader impact. So I thought we'd just have a conversation. Steve has spoken very eloquently and written very eloquently about his experience of going through cancer with his wife, Rachael. Claire and John are obviously going through cancer together. I don't know you both, but from Twitter, you seem like an incredible team. So I'm really excited to find out a bit more. So can we start with John? Just, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about you and your story over the last year or so.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm 46 years old. I've always been pretty healthy and active and doing lots of exercise and eating well. And probably last springtime, I noticed a bruise on my ankle. I thought it was a bruise. It looked like, you know, about the size of 50 pence, a bit bigger. I thought it was a bruise. It didn't clear up, and then just presumed it was like a burst capillary or something. It wasn't painful. It wasn't raised. It wasn't itchy or anything. Didn't think anything of it really. I then got a little bit of very mild eczema, and fast forward a few months, I got given some cream for that. That cleared up, and I said to the consultant that Claire had helped put me in front of, the dermatologist, what about this bruise? Not thinking anything of it whatsoever, not even suspecting I've got an elevated awareness of cancer just because of being with Claire the last 20 years. And he said we could do a punch biopsy for peace of mind if you like. So I agreed with that, didn't think anything of it, went back for results on that and got told it was a very rare form of sarcoma. And 4 weeks after that, a month later, then got diagnosed with lymphoma as well. And then the journey kind of begun, and since then I've had 2 lots of surgery, 3 weeks of radiotherapy, and start 5 weeks of radiotherapy next Monday as well. So that's a really quick whistle-top tour, but so it's been a crazy less than 12 months, and amongst all that, I've worked. I did have time off while I had the surgery on my ankle and the radiotherapy, but I've been back at work about 3.5 months now. I had the surgery in Friday the 13th of December, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so that's been it. But amongst all of that, we were just starting some major building renovations on our house, which we had to move out, and we were, like everyone, as almost people have done, living in the front room, washing up in the sink. But whilst having had 2 diagnoses, 2 lots of surgery, it was all the more challenging. But yeah, so it's been a crazy 12 months for for sure. Well, since September last year, it's been a bit manic. Yeah.
I can only imagine, and I must congratulate you, because I saw very recently you've done your biggest ever bike ride of 103 miles. And you're getting ready for radiotherapy, which is somewhat extreme, but also pretty awesome. So, Claire, your background is as a cancer nurse, palliative care nurse. And you now work in you're director of NHS of Greater Manchester Cancer, so you're obviously very involved in cancer and have been for a lot of your working life. What was it like for you, given all of that, when John was being diagnosed and talking through treatment plans and things?
Well, to be honest with you, when it was one of my cancer specialists who's a skin doctor, who saw him for his, I just said to him, well, can you do me a favour and just see John? He's got this, looked like contact dermatitis, bit of eczema, and then had this thing on his ankle, and just obviously, as John alluded to, asked about it. And I genuinely, and all my experience, and we kept looking at it. We were at what was it called? Carfest North, and one of our friends, right on your ankle, John. And we're like, oh, I don't think it's anything. We've had a biopsy. And I genuinely, so you can imagine, wealth of experience, and you miss a cancer. But I suppose the worst thing was John went for his appointment for his cancer diagnosis. I didn't go with him. I was actually at a cancer conference in Manchester. I was about to go on stage and do a presentation. And I just texted and said, hi, darling, how are you? How have you got on in clinic? And he just texted me and said, I'm going for bloods, ring me. And I just thought straight away, knowing what I know, you don't go for a dermatology appointment, a biopsy result, and walk out. So it was a total shock. And you know, I think the worst thing about when you get diagnosed with a cancer and it's a shock like that is, the worst thing is telling people, I suppose my world become cancer 24 hours a day.
Oh, we've just lost you, Claire.
One of the big things for me was a team have been brilliant. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you're back again now.
We live in the hills, so the Wi-Fi is a bit rubbish up here, so it probably it was made all the more difficult being exposed to cancer every day, because I knew, and all my friends, all my colleagues knew that I knew most things about cancer and knew what the trajectory of this illness could potentially be. And you know, I remember sitting in a few meetings and them talking about, oh, you know, we need to get to 85% of cancers patients survive more than 5 years. And when those statistics that are my bread and butter that I'm driving in Manchester through Greater Manchester Cancer to deliver, when it's actually your partner then that's a statistic and a number, it really puts a mirror up to the things that we're doing and how we talk to cancer patients about facts and figures and data. And it's really made me re-look at work as well. So it's been really difficult, as John's alluded to, but we get strength from each other. We've got great family and friends. John's been really supported by GMP. The police have been brilliant. Obviously, my team have been awesome. And you just have to crack on. We just get the difficulty for us. We went from a bruise on his ankle to a scan, which the doctors went, there's going to be no problem with the scan, Claire. It's just routine, to, oh, there's a mass on the scan. And you know what that means. We went, mass? What mass? And the mass turned out to be lymphoma. He then went for his surgery on Friday the 13th, which we now realise was a curse because the surgery didn't work and he didn't have clear margins. And the house was in a mess, and we couldn't be in our house at Christmas because the surgeons went, what do you mean you're getting building work done? You can't go back. You're going to have to find somewhere to live, and it's Christmas. And we were like, you know, Mary walking around at Christmas with the donkey to find somewhere to live. And luckily our friends put us up and over Christmas. And little things like, for Ellie, our daughter's 8, you know, everyone does the elf thing. I don't know if you do that with Freddie, but we get the naughty elf who's obviously real.
It's real.
Do you do that, Steve?
I only started doing it this year, just last year. I knew nothing about it.
No.
I knew absolutely.
Lucky you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I had no commitment to it whatsoever. Like Freddie lost interest, I lost interest.
Well, we got the elf to write notes to Ellie saying, "You're not going to be at home for Christmas, but don't worry, because you're going to be in this house." Santa knows. She should be like, "Santa's not going to know where to deliver my presents."
Yeah.
So yeah, it was all very, you know, we did keep going to clinic, and I kept saying, because obviously a big love badge for the Christian, I kept saying to all the consultants who I knew, all the nurses in clinic who I knew, please tell us some good news. And every time I went, it was just bad news.
Yeah.
So, you know, margins weren't clear, but obviously he's had some successful treatment for the lymphoma, which is great. We're going back for more radiotherapy for the ankle, the sarcoma on his ankle. And I think, you know, Steve will be aware of this. You know, people think you get diagnosed with cancer, and everyone keeps saying to me, "Is he cured now? Then is it all over? Is it?" And once you get a cancer diagnosis, there is no kind of end point. It's not maybe like other diseases like heart disease or something where it's once you've got cancer, you've got cancer, and that's your new kind of, I hate to use new normal, but that's the reality, and you have to live with cancer. But we were very determined that it wouldn't define us, and that's why we carried on with the exercise. We carried on life as normal, and we led a pretty good life before that, and we'll just, you know, go 10x on that life that we're going to lead, because we don't know what the future will hold.
Do you find, Claire, because you've got some medical knowledge, and I always wonder whether that's a blessing or a curse in you know, in the situations where someone becomes unwell. Did you find that, and this is quite personal, but could the two of you be honest with each other about how scared you were, or what you were feeling, or were you trying to protect each other and put on brave faces?
No, I think we were.
I think, well, I'll let you go first. I think we both have very different answers to that. I think I'll go first. So I've only got my own perspective, and I want to speak for Claire, but none of this is easy. But I think because I was more exposed to cancer just through being involved in conversations in the household the last 20 years or so, track than you know, our friends, if you like. So I was finding myself reminding myself of that, and realizing, hold on a second, people hear that word and, you know, start to fall apart. And we didn't, but obviously, you know, you react as you do initially, and you have a million and one questions. But for me, I was really worried for Claire, because there's no escaping it for her. And I think because I didn't know as much as I knew, probably a lot more than the average person in the street, but Claire knows so much more. And, you know, I was mindful that, you know, she knows that, I don't. So I can be willfully ignorant to that, not knowing, you know, the technicalities, not wanting to. And I didn't jump on Google and all that sort of stuff. I left that completely.
I would let you.
No, well, I left that completely to the consultants, and trusted the years of experience that they've got, and the peer-reviewed papers and all that, everything that comes with it, and remain that to this day. And so, while I was going through it, the biggest thing I found the most difficult, and I didn't realise it till it happened, was that when I had that operation on the 13th of December, and then the subsequent one at the end of January, it took away something that I'd probably took for granted and always had, and that's been able to be fit and active, and it's just part of what it was like, you know, as natural as breathing. Until you take that away from someone, you don't realise how important that is. So I've never had a proper. Well, there was about half a day where I was probably down and you know, peed off about stuff, and it was literally that, and I've been all right. And I think I've had a lot of. We're talking about the house before. I think I've had a lot of what I would call, being an optimist, healthy distractions. So Christmas, moving into a holiday home, moving in with some friends because we had to move out twice. Things going on at the house, trying to project manage that while hopping around on crutches, and all that sort of stuff. So for me, I was very mindful of Claire was looking out to protect me, as you do. I was looking out to protect Claire. When we did have friends come round, naturally, you know, the stereotyping here, but my experience, the guy will end up speaking with a bottle of beer to the
Yeah.
husband, and someone will end up speaking to Claire the other half and go, right, so what is his prognosis? How is he? What's going to happen? What's going to happen next? And asking all those sort of questions. And I knew that was taking place. And I knew people didn't want to ask me that directly, one, because I've not got the experience, and two, they probably, don't want to ask those questions, which I don't mind being asked. I'd rather they did, in all honesty.
Yeah.
I knew that was taking place, and Claire was going to work, managing cancer services across GM, as challenging as it is, and there was just no escape at all for Claire. And I'm, really alive to that fact. So I'll let you kind of explain your
Yeah, I mean, I think, what do we do? Do we stick our head in the sand and kind of think it's all too difficult, or do we just go head up and carry on? And there was a lot of exposure, and lots of people did ring me and go, what's on prognosis, what's going to happen? And there wasn't an escape, but certainly over the last 10 years, I've helped, because I'm not a nurse anymore. I'm really miss that patient contact. So I'm not known as Claire O'Rourke, I'm known as Cancer Claire, which I don't know if it's a good tag or not. Anybody within a 30-mile radius of where I live who gets diagnosed with cancer, I invariably get a text message at 10 o'clock at night from an auntie or a mum or a friend, a mum at school who's, my dad's had cancer, or they've got this. And so I do a lot of external help for people. So that John kind of came a bit of another person to help, but obviously it was somebody really close. And there was some really dark days, but to be honest with you, I got my trainers on and went running, or drank wine, did both. And literally, I remember when John got diagnosed with lymphoma, because the consultant rang him at home to tell us, and you just went out for a run up over the hills here. And so we've got good coping mechanisms, and we're pretty resilient people. And not being, and Steve's story will highlight this. Things can be a lot worse, and young people die within weeks of cancer diagnosis and within months. So, you're lucky you've got cancer that we can treat, because he's got two. We've actually worked the statistic. A very clever statistician told us he's got more chance of winning the lottery than getting diagnosed with two rare cancers at his age. So we've been okay, and we've supported each other as best we can. The biggest thing is supporting family and friends, because they didn't understand, didn't know what I knew, and I almost had to support a lot more people than ourselves. So we ended up doing Facebook posts and Twitter posts to everybody, just to stop all the phone calls and text messages, because dealing with 20 text messages, how did the scan go, how was the clinic, that actually was probably worse than the other bits. So
that's really interesting. That's interesting, because I sometimes suggest that to some of my patients, and anecdotally it seems to take a lot of the pressure off. But Steve, just so, like anyone who's listened to the You Me Big C podcast, I feel like I knew Rachael, and the episodes that she did right from the beginning until she died, they were just so powerful and so impactful. And I guess, she's an incredible lady. We all feel like, anyone who's listened to it, feel like we were there with you. It's 2 years, nearly 2 years, isn't it, since Rachael died?
September, yeah.
And I guess maybe that bit of time has allowed you to reflect a little bit on the year or two. I'm not sure, 2 years since, from when she was diagnosed to when she died. What do you think? Well, actually, I'm going to read something, because this is something that Rachael wrote a book, which I haven't read, but I found a wonderful quote from the book about you.
I'll send you a copy.
Oh, thank you. That wasn't a hint, but so this is what Rachael wrote about Steve. Along with my fabulous friends, I'm very lucky to have a wonderful family support network around me. I know if someone has to go through this, then I'm as good a person as any, as I have such a great team. Steve is, of course, the captain. One of our friends, on hearing the news, sent a message saying, if you ever had to go through cancer, then Steve will be the man you'd want alongside you. It had been only a few years since our beautiful wedding, when we were so full of hope for what our future together would hold. We stood at the front of that church and promised to love each other in sickness and in health. Neither of us could have imagined the sickness part would come so soon. I felt terribly guilty that he was having to go through this because of me. That's apparently quite common among women with cancer. But he told me so many times that he'd rather go through cancer with me than have an easy time with anyone else. So he's been there for every appointment, holding my hand and picking me up when I'm down. I still feel bad that he's going to have to pick up a lot of slacks on the days I'm feeling rough, when I won't be able to pull my weight with the childcare and household chores. I was incredibly lucky with the support of Steve, the whole family and my brilliant friends. They made the whole process as simple as it could be. You couldn't have a better endorsement of what you were like for Rachael, but it must have been super tough.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's, of all the kind of 90 odd thousand words in that book, those are some of my favorite ones, just because, Rachael wasn't always, so good at kind of showing how she felt, and particularly during, when someone's going through cancer, you don't, between the two of you, you don't always have time to have those, those nice moments. It's, you just rushed off your feet. You're going from one scan to the next, one bit of news to the next bit of news, and so when she wrote that, it was fantastic. But yeah, it was tough. It was really tough, and I think it was just the relentlessness of it. You just go, like I say, you're going from one scan to another scan to another scan. We never had a period where it was particularly going that well. There may be a few weeks here and there, when we had a bit of good news, and then a bit of time before the next bit of bad news. But there wasn't really, best part of 2 years, and there wasn't really any let up. And it was really only after Rachael died that I can remember sitting in. It was probably like 3 weeks after she died, because the 2 weeks after she died, that there were just a massive whirlwind, the attention and everything that
you
came
had
with
all
it.
The media as well, which
it was crazy. It was so wonderful in one way, because such an amazing thing for us, our family and her friends, to kind of see what people thought of her, and for the attention was just just amazing. There were obituaries in like all the broadsheets, and we were on the front page of several newspapers, and it was just a bit bonkers. But then 3 weeks or so after that, when it all died down, I can remember sitting on the sofa and just taking a breath and just going, oh, that was tough, because when you're in it, you just don't have a second to think about it. And people will say, but are you looking after yourself? And you're like, well, not really, because I'm not the priority here. And there were a few things that I did to kind of make sure I did look after myself. But
was that helpful? Because I sometimes say that to patients' mums or partners, and I never know whether it's helpful or actually it's I can't look after myself. I'm trying to look after whoever.
It's really difficult. It's really difficult. I do think on one hand, I've been asked a few times why I think should be better in the whole kind of process, and I have said there needs to be more support for other half, definitely, because at the start of it, you go and see a Macmillan nurse, and you're handed some pamphlets, and they say, we're here for you too, and that's pretty much all you get. And there is support if you go out and look for it, but particularly us guys, we're not very good at going and looking for it. But then on the flip side, it is really difficult, because I never wanted Rachael to think that I was struggling, because she was the sort of person that if she thought I was, like she said in the quote you read out, she felt guilty about it all. And if she'd have thought that it was really having an impact on me, that's one more thing for her to worry about, and just didn't want to pile anything more on top of her. So so you just have to sort of become a bit of a punch bag and put up with it, and it was only the end I thought that was really tough.
Did you talk to Rachael about? It sounds like you were trying to protect her a little bit from how you were really finding it.
Well, it wasn't that I was. It was obviously tough, but you just get in this, or I did anyway. I got in this kind of mode where you're just thinking, right, really practically. You almost, maybe it's like the journalist in me or something, that you sort of take the emotion out of it. in a way.
Yeah.
You just go to a scan, then you go to the next scan, and you
Yeah.
try and look at all the results and all the news like almost dispassionately. You're trying to. It's different when if I was like with my parents or something, it'd be a bit different. And also as much as possible, I was trying to kind of separate life from cancer a little bit, and like John said, a bit of denial takes you a long way. And I wanted to keep cancer out of our life as much as was humanly possible. As it turns out, anybody will tell you it's very difficult to do that. And so I guess it was it was obviously really, really, really tough. But I think when you're in it, you don't really necessarily realize just how hard it is. It's only kind of looking back when a mate of mine told me that when Rachel was early, like looked at me and I was like white, and I put on a bit of weight, and I just looked like I hadn't slept for a week. And but I never really realized that at all. You're just in this kind of bubble of trying to do everything you can to help.
Yeah. And you, John and Claire, please do join it. I don't want it just me to be me asking questions. I'd love the three of you to ask each other, because you obviously you know each other a bit, but you've probably got lots more interesting questions. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say it definitely rang a bell with what Claire was saying about knowing too much is really difficult. And I think now, because we're so involved in the kind of cancer community that there's everyone on social media and so on, knowing too much is just a terrible curse, because you see it sort of takes away, for me anyway, it takes away a lot of the hope.
Yeah.
It takes away the ability to look on the bright side a little bit. And when you see someone, we had a very good friend of ours die recently, Kelly, and from a number of weeks out, you could just see where it was going, and because I've seen it and I had a front row seat to it before.
Yeah.
You just, it's difficult to watch, and it takes away the hope a little bit, and must be, you sort of said it a bit, Claire, didn't you, before? Knowing too much is a bit of a curse sometimes.
Oh,
I think they're frozen.
Oh no.
Oh no, are you there, Claire? Can you hear us?
We're back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're back on.
It is, and little things when I was, I'm sure John will say the same, but when I was going back to the Christie and walking on the corridors, all the departments, and I'd see people I've known, they'd be like, "Hi Claire, what are you doing here?" And they see John and they'd be like,
See that bit of paper in my hand.
And then and you're like, and then I'd have to tell the story, and I'd be sat in, and Steve just alluded to your life. I mean, if I could show you our fridge, it used to be loads of pictures of Ellie done at school, and it's just appointments. When's our next appointment? And your life does become, or can become, a focus of appointment. John's been at the Christie yesterday. He's going back tomorrow, and then he's back in every day for the next 5 weeks for his radiotherapy. So your life is focused, and there's very little escape from cancer. And then, as I've talked about, it is my bread and butter as well. But I just, our experience, and the reason why we've shared it on, so we've got friends who've gone, "Oh, it's cringy. I don't know how you can share stuff. I don't know how you can talk about it." And John was a bit reluctant at first. I'm all over Twitter, and you only wonder I've got a day job, because people go, "You're just on Twitter all the time." And Facebook, but I'm doing it to promote, to normalise this, because Rachel was the one out of 10 people who got diagnosed with cancer, because most people get diagnosed aren't Rachel's age, aren't John's age, but young people, as Steve's alluded to, lovely Kelly that I was following through all of his social media, that died, and it breaks your heart that all these people are dying of cancer. And we need to raise the profile. We need to do more. And there's a massive psychological impact of cancer. It's just, I used to say to my cancer patients, you walk out the door Claire O'Rourke, and you walk back the door a different person when you get diagnosed. And the impact is huge, and we need to do a massive piece of work to support the cancer patients and support the family, because invariably, as Steve just alluded to, you're not going to go and look up a support group when you've got to support your wife, support your child, your family, everything. All that support goes out the window. And what shouldn't happen is Steve's got to the end of his experience, and then unfortunately the outcome, and then he has to realise that there was so much support out there that maybe he could have got. And John is fortunate to know can get any support through my networks, but we're not normal. We're not normal people who get diagnosed with cancer. Other people haven't got a clue. And I could navigate the system as well. The system is a minefield when you get diagnosed with cancer. You know, turn up for appointments, scans, are they going to ring you? Are they going to, you know, how's it? So it's really hard to navigate the system. It's really scary. So our journey's been relatively easy because I can phone the Christie because I know everyone and go, oh, you've not had a scan through yet, is it? You know, but not everyone has that. Not everyone has a support network of specialists.
And did you find it hard? Because I've been looking after a very young man whose treatment just stopped working, and his mum is the most incredible lady, and she has been the most amazing advocate for him all the way, but she's had to push for everything. And sadly in the NHS, if you push, things do happen more quickly, and things the patient does get a smoother path, and that's not right, but that's what happens. Have you found it hard advocating for your husband rather than advocating for someone anonymous?
I've tried to, as you can see, I talk a lot, so I've tried to take a back step. I haven't. I'm 100%. You know, we make our cancer patients wait 62 days to start treatment, and it's appalling.
Yeah.
And COVID's caused such a massive, and Steve knows all the work that they've done on the podcast, and Deborah's done with the panorama. People are waiting too long. I will champion anyone with cancer to get seen and diagnosed, whether it's my husband or whether it's my neighbour, or, you know, Joe Blogs in the street. I think we all need to be advocates and champions for people to get through the system. But I did try and take, I mean, actually at the moment I can't go to the consultations with John because of COVID.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
But I tried to keep quiet in the appointments as best I could. But of course I know all the consultants, and then I'm like, but to be fair.
Oh no.
You know that it's a phenomenal organised and frozen link. Our internet's dreadful. We're back.
Yeah.
I was just saying how brilliant the Christie is, and Steve knows that from Rachel's experience. But the consultant spoke to me like John's wife, not Claire, who runs Greater Manchester Cancer. They very much, I was treated like a wife of a cancer patient, not as Claire who knew everything. So they were just phenomenal, weren't they? So yeah.
On that, I've got a question coming from Tony for you, Claire, actually. You've kind of talked a bit about it already, but do you feel like since John's diagnosis, has this really changed your thinking on cancer patient care? And if so, how has it, and what would you want to see changed? I know you said a bit about, you know, waiting time and things like that, but anything else particularly on patient care?
I mean, we're already at Greater Manchester Cancer. We're already. It's our single goal to get cancer patients seen and treated earlier. So that's our focus. We've got a brilliant team of, you know, Professor Shackley, Susie Penny, Lisa, all of my team, Alison, all of the team around are committed to getting cancer patients in, and everyone in Greater Manchester wants people to be seen and diagnosed quicker. My learning has been about this psychological support for patients, and we're just recruiting to a post next week in GM Cancer for a psychological lead, to look at the impact of cancer and also the impact of COVID in cancer, because it's a big gap. So yeah, if I had a magic wand, I'd want, and I know we weren't going to talk about the government, but there's so much more financial support that we need in cancer, because it is the biggest killer of the population in Greater Manchester, above and beyond anything else. And we you know, I get all the other diseases and illnesses need a focus, but we really, and right now, even more important that we're focusing on the right financial support, and we haven't got enough, and my team know all I ever do is ask people for money to support what we do. So it's really, you know, I will always champion that, and Tony's brilliant, you know, an advocate for what we do. And I don't know what Steve's thoughts are, because you've done a lot, Steve, haven't you, with that panorama work, and you impact.
like you said, Deb did most of the heavy lifting. She did all the big interviews and stuff. We just, our bit was talking to Kelly and the kind of the really impactful story at the start of it all. And yeah, no, it is absolutely heartbreaking what COVID is doing. We had Lucy, I was on our pod the other week, weren't you, Lucy, talking about exactly this, and difficult for patients, difficult for you guys as well, working in we're working in oncology as well, and it's really difficult. And I do think, though, I think everyone seems to be kind of on the same page. Definitely the will is there to get it all up and running again. I know you can argue about the politics all you like, but I feel like everyone is kind of on the same page. The big worry is it's the backlog, isn't it? And
yeah.
The backlog of people that haven't been seen during COVID, and what impact that's going to have in 6 months' time or 12 months' time. And so the sooner we can get it all back up and running, the better. And hopefully, the panorama talked about a worst case of 35,000 additional cancer deaths, and hopefully we'll get nowhere near that, because they'll get it up and running sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Steve, because cancer services have never really stopped. We've still, there's been a lot of messaging about us stopping, and we never stopped. We've always, when COVID hit, I didn't see the light of day, and neither did my team, for months.
Yeah.
So it's always carried on. We've just had to be careful, because COVID strips us clear of so much. And John, in fact, your radiotherapy should have started 3 months ago, and John's radiotherapy was delayed because of safety, risk, the right patient's been in.
And lots of it's in hindsight too, isn't it? Lucy, you were saying to us on the pod, like what we knew at the start of lockdown is different to what we know now. So, so you just got to believe that all the decisions were taken, with patients in mind. Whether they were right or wrong in hindsight is a different matter. They're all taken with patients' kind of well-being in mind, and that's all by the by. That's all happened. That's all behind us now. We just need to get it all going, up and running, clear the backlog as quickly as possible, and also get support going for the charities again.
So I think that's just going back to what we've gone off top onto COVID, and that's a whole different pod. But I'm very, very keen to get your, I guess, Steve, if your mate's wife was diagnosed with cancer, or your mate's husband was diagnosed with cancer, and you went out for a beer, what kind of things would you be saying to them to make however long that journey is as smooth as possible?
There's a lot of things people say to you. Like I said before, look after yourself. You're probably not going to do much of that. What I did find was really helpful was with every few months I'd take myself off, for a weekend with my university friends or some friends, and they're really good. We'd go like 3 days and we wouldn't even mention the word cancer, and that was really good, just to recharge the batteries. Rachel and I were really good at talking about it. You're talking like really openly, and for me that really helped. I think a lot of guys are denial gets you so far, but I think for us in our situation, because particularly when we knew that it was incurable, for the last sort of 6 or 8 months, you've got to face up to it, and only if you actually understand what's happening, then you can start making the right decisions. So I would definitely say talk about it. Rachel, anybody will know from following Rachel on the podcast or her blog or social media, she was open to a fault. She would share absolutely everything. It was funny at the start of when she first started blogging. It was the first couple of blog entries were quite upbeat, and then she had a bad scan, and it was the first one where she had to say maybe it's not going that well. And I read it over her shoulder, and I was like, "Are you sure you want to be talking like that? Be saying when it's be so honest when it's going badly?" And she said, "Well, no, I have to do the rough with the smooth, and it's it's no holds barred." But that definitely helped me as because I knew that we were able to talk openly about it. It wasn't a dirty secret. It was nothing that we were ashamed of. And but yeah, it's difficult to know what I'd say to someone, because you know, there isn't really a magic one that can make it better.
No.
You know, it's going to be however long it is, you know, a year, 2 years, 6 months, whatever it is, and it's going to be really hard. And you have to just knuckle down. You've got to accept you're going to be a punch bag from time to time. You get, I remember Victoria Derbyshire, the BBC journalist, when she had breast cancer, her other half said to me, "You're going to have to get used to being a single dad. You're going to have to, you know, that's the way it is for a time, you know." And Rachel, in the quote you read out at the start, she talked about housework. She was never any good at housework. So it wasn't, you know, much different on that front. I did all the cooking anyway, so it's, yeah.
I think that's probably, you know, from all the, you know, my years as an oncologist, I think quite often early on, couples try to protect each other, and that never works. And actually, when they open up to each other honestly about what they're feeling, I think that's when things become easier. Certainly, kind of watching from afar, that seems to.
It's so important, because you can as well, you know, we knew we didn't have, you know, whether it's going to be 6 months or 2 years or whatever, but it didn't really matter. We knew that the time was limited, and you know, Rachel's mum, I don't think she'd mind me saying that she struggled to accept it, and I think it meant, you know, that she maybe, for us, we wanted to go on the holidays, we wanted to go and do the things we wanted to do.
Yeah.
We knew that our time was going to be limited, so, you know, the reason we could do all that was because we were so open and so honest with each other, and it was never going to be something that we weren't going to talk about, and that kind of led to, you know, sharing it so openly on social media, and like Claire was saying, you know, but I think it is, for me, that's just about trying to get something good out of something, you know, something so awful. You know, it's, you know, losing Rachel will never be a good thing. It's always going to be utterly horrific. But you know, what do you do now? You have to try and, you know, get something good out of it. And if we can even make life easier for even just one person, or ensure that even just one person gets diagnosed earlier, or you know, whatever it might be, then, you know, job done.
Well, what an amazing job you're doing of that. And Claire and John, I guess, you know, your cancer journey, I hate that word, but is hopefully a finite one, and you will come to the end of your treatment, John, and won't need to have any more. Claire, you're in a unique position, really, because you can use the experience that you're both going through at the moment to shape cancer care in Manchester. Perhaps, you know, we're all looking at so much of the great work that's going on in Manchester and thinking we should do the same locally. What do you know, if you two, I'm very mindful of time, have you two got anything you'd like to say before we tie up about your experiences and advice, or, you know, what's helped, what hasn't helped?
I think just building on what Steve said there, really, is I think each person is unique, and how they want to be spoken to or not will be unique to them. But, you know, I would say to anyone who knows someone that's experienced it themselves, hold the mirror up, be really honest as soon as you can, because the sooner you do that, the better. And if people are frightened of having those conversations, just ask it, and that person will let you know whether they want to speak or not, because sometimes you're happy to, sometimes you get tired and can't be bothered with it, because if you're saying that, particularly the early superficial conversations, how did the scan go, that sort of stuff, it's most natural, but just ask. Some people kind of hide in the shadows because it's frightening to them. I mean, the people who are friends and who are close to you. Yeah. But don't be, just ask. And I think, you know, the other thing Steve said was around trying to take the positives away. One thing cancer is it's indiscriminate, and it's extremely grounding. And you can take the positives away from that. And we can all be, and I'll start with myself, but we can all be incredibly fickle on occasions. And you know, sometimes you've got to get out of the way of your own ego and really focus on what is really important, as opposed to, you know, so doing those things, spending that time together, and not putting it off, because that rainy day never comes, and if it does, you'll be 75 in a rocking chair wetting your pants, and it ain't much use then.
And we shouldn't
do those, maybe 85. Do those things now. Don't put them off, and you know, hold that mirror up. And I think with or without cancer, we can all take a lesson from that. And I've took a lot from that, and I hope I will continue to do so. Yeah, but have those conversations with people, and you know, if it enters your mind, just say it. It's just starting. It's like exercise. It's getting out there, putting the trainers on, going out, or getting on the bike. Then you'll start enjoying it. You don't know where you're going to go, but just start the conversation, and don't hold back on it. And if you're uncomfortable with it, then you can wrap it up, can't you?
And Claire, we're 2 minutes over. So Steve, if you need to run,
I do.
Run.
I'm really sorry. I need to go.
Thank you so much, so Claire. We'll come back to you. But Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. And I want a T-shirt next time.
Yeah, we'll send you a T-shirt. I'm holding you that you're coming to a 5K your way though when we're
absolutely
up and running.
We will. Yeah, absolutely we will. Yeah, no problem.
We'll send you the T-shirt to tie you into that deal.
Absolutely.
Deal.
You can hold me to that. Hey?
Winslow.
Winslow, my closest one.
Tony's got champagne.
Has he? Oh, well, that's my closest one, definitely. So, yeah, count me in.
The date.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Steve.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Claire, just go. Sorry, should we just come? Yeah, Claire, I don't want to cut you off without giving you a chance. And we might actually have a few comments as well, Georgie.
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree with everything John said. Looks like I'm going to be the one nursing you in your chair, wetting your pants. I don't know how that's going to work. To me, and actually, I know we've got our T-shirts on. The single biggest thing actually I felt was a benefit to John was going on the Cancer 5K. When I had to persuade him, he's like, "Oh, it's in Winslow. It's like an hour from here." And I was like, "You're going to really enjoy it. Come." And you got to talk to other cancer patients. I'm not a cancer patient. And actually what's been so good about this movement that you've set up, which obviously, you know, we've got a big love badge for because we love it. And we can see the benefits. So John got to talk to other cancer patients who I wouldn't, you know, have the conversations, and he went off chatting. In fact, we were gone for hours. Coffee, you go for coffee afterwards, and Tony and Sarah and all the team who pulled us in, and it became such a lovely thing to do and look forward to. Like-minded people, all trajectories, but just having that chat, and there's no one else you can talk to. But I've not been in cancer shoes, so I can't say what it feels like to be a cancer patient. Others could. So this movement that you've set up, and you know we're massive advocates and champions, and we will continue to do that. I promise I will take this off on the school run though, because everyone's starting to think I'm going to have to buy another one. So really, really important. Your movement's been amazing, so can't thank you enough for that. But my thing is, you do have to take the positives out, as John said, and exercise. You know, our team at GM Cancer set up the pre-ab for cancer.
Yeah.
All of that. Keeping fit. You know, you've said John's got his radiotherapy next week. He's going to go on a bike ride after this call. We're going to go running over the weekend. Being fit gets you through cancer.
Yeah.
And actually could potentially improve outcomes, which we're demonstrating. So fitness and exercise is so important. Before you get diagnosed with cancer, but certainly when you do get diagnosed, if you've not done it before, don't be afraid, do it. So we're massive advocates of exercise, and I think we need to push that movement forward, and why we're supporting Zoe and Kirsty and the team with the pre-ab for cancer movement. It's a massive part of our work in GM Cancer, and we're huge advocates of that.
And the work those guys are doing is incredible. I mean, yeah, the words you've just said about 5K Your Way have really made me smile. And I guess I hope that for partners as well, it can be an avenue to de-stress and to talk to.
Drink cake, eat champagne. What's not?
Sounds amazing. I'm 100% coming to the Wilmslow one.
Watch out, Tony, it's going to be overflowing.
Georgie, have you got any comments? Have you got any questions?
They're all just kind of really nice comments. So just shout out to everyone who's put a comment. Esther, Helen Murray, Tracy, Mike, Sarah, Timothy, Paula, Lisa, Jodie Jones, hi, and Carol. Yeah, everyone that's put a comment, thank you. We are reading them as we go along. It's all everyone. talking to a few people about the Panorama program and about their treatment as well. And everyone's saying excellent discussion. Thank you. So thank you for listening.
Well, I mean, there are so many things I would love to. We didn't even get on to children and how Ellie's cope with it, and there are so many other things. But I think we are trying to be abrupt, and Steve having to go has made us pull our socks up and shorten things a little bit. Thank you so much, John and Claire. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you for sharing a little bit of your experience. And John, good luck with the radiotherapy. It will be a bit of a slog, I think, but I've no doubt you are in an amazingly strong team, and you'll be out riding your bike probably through it, and certainly not long after it.
Yeah, you're going out now.
I want to say something, Lucy, is, and I'm mindful of other people listening and perhaps following some of the stuff on Twitter, is for me the fitness, and I alluded to this and I digressed, but it's the fitness, the link to the mental health. So I wouldn't want people to watch this and think, right, you've got to go and cycle 100 mile and, you know, run an ultra marathon to get the benefit. It's the links to the mental health aspect. And when I had my operation, I had to sit with my foot elevated for a while with a skin graft and all the rest of it. That was when I realised I had a bit of a downer, because it wasn't so much the fitness and the benefits you get health-wise, it was the link to the mental health, and obviously, you know, your serotonin, oxytocin, all that kind of bit. And I think everyone has to do it what's relative for them, but just get out there and you'll feel the benefit from it. So whether it's doing a you know, couch to 5k or whatever it might be, just going for a walk, just getting, you know, lifting your well-being, just do something and you'll feel the benefit. It doesn't have to be anything, you know, overly strenuous or, you know, unobtainable, and I think everyone can benefit from that.
So we've just got a friend of mine who was treated in Nottingham. He brought a spinning bike into the hospital and left it on that. We've got this beautiful roof terrace when he finished his treatment, and he's just fundraised to buy an outdoor cross trainer. So we're going to have a cross trainer and a spinning bike. And my hope is that at least when people are in the hospital for 5 days for their chemo, they can just go out and move a little bit and perhaps chat a metre, 2 metres apart, however far apart we have to be going forward. That's so important. I mean, I realise more than ever at the moment how important exercise is to me for mental health, as much, you know, more now mental health probably rather than physical health, and I'm sure the same for you, Claire. Thank you so much. Good luck, good luck, John and Claire.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Don't be late picking up your children.
We've got to go.